All right, good evening, everyone. This is a public meeting of the School Board of West Bend Joint School District Number 1. More than 24 hours prior to the meeting, notice of the time, place, date, and subject matter of this meeting was posted at the entrance doors at the Education Service Center and at the West Bend Community Memorial Library. A copy was also sent to the Daily News, WIBD, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and other media sources that have requested notice of our meetings. I'd ask our superintendent to confirm that this meeting was properly posted.
Yes, it was.
Great, thank you. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Great, thank you, everyone. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda, and I would move for approval of the agenda. Is there a second?
Second, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. Motion and second to approve the agenda. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. The motion carries. On then to our student reports. Tonight we have Emily Huseman here from East who will give us an update. Emily, welcome, and we look forward to hearing what's new in East.
Hello everyone. I hope you are all enjoying the nice weather. I know I definitely am. We are all on our final stretch until the end of the year, and students have 1 or 2 more units in their classes. And students are beginning to prepare for AP tests that are coming up within the next few months. In other news, underclassmen will be taking ACT Aspire testing on the 27th. This includes all virtual students. More recently, seniors are able to vote on their year's superlatives in a survey sent out in their emails. Staying on the topic of seniors, all of the stressing about scholarships is over. I am so glad about that. Recipients of scholarships were mailed letters by the school district awarding them with scholarships. They are now expected to write a thank you letter to whoever donated them the money. Some important news: the East National Honor Society shoe drive to benefit Building Hope in Haiti began this week. Donated shoes will be sent to Haiti or another third world country to be sold at street stands. This will aid individuals with financial struggles while also providing others with clothing. If the nonprofit group Building Hope in Haiti can reach its shoe collection goal of 2,500 pairs, $1,000 from funds to orgs will be donated to Building Hope in Haiti to further benefit the cause. This will end April 16th. On April 15th, there will be the Give Back Night at the Norbert Bar and Kitchen for the East Suns Athletics. They're graciously donating 100% of profits from all the tacos sold from 4 to 10 p.m. Also in athletics, East Dance went to state March 23rd. Good job, ladies. We recently had a few seniors sign to colleges, including Crosby, who signed with the University of Wisconsin-Parkside on a scholarship to wrestle. Crosby has had an incredible career at East and will now continue that career at one of the top Division II wrestling programs in the country. Jake Levanway has also signed to the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh to play football. He was a great team member in both football and wrestling. A few things that are going on in the academic world. Animation class students are expected to draw and color 200 frame animation. They have been working on this now for about a week. And photography students are creating large symbolic poster boards of something meaningful to them. Orchestra students are getting the opportunity to perform again, just in time for one last concert for the seniors. On May 1st, they will be having a performance at Regner Park during the Booster Club meeting. In other good news, Drumline has also just started up again this Sunday. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate it very much. All right. And Abigail Eckert of West wasn't able to join us tonight, but Superintendent Wimmer will be pinch hitting for her.
So Abigail is not with us in person. She's out of the state visiting colleges, and she had some technical issues with uploading her video. So she sent us her report, and I'd let her know I would be happy to read it on her behalf. So this is from Abigail Eckert, our West representative. So she just says, hello, everyone. In the academic world, most AP classes are finishing up their last units and are transitioning to review for AP tests. This year, the tests will begin on Monday, May 3rd. The team sports Phi-Ed classes are beginning their unit on Ultimate Frisbee. Honors English 3 is beginning to read Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. Being set during the French Revolution, the class is also learning a crash course of the time period. AP Language recently finished an introduction to the synthesis argument portion of their exam. In this assignment, students were given a variety of sources and asked to write a comprehensive argument citing the information given. Students were asked to discuss a very common topic in a high schooler's life, relationships. The prompt asked students to give relationship advice based on calendars, Instagram posts, and quotes from friends. It's a fun way to introduce the topic in a relatable way. In the athletic and extracurricular world, SEED is preparing for Earth Week next week. They'll be delivering pre-ordered t-shirts to celebrate. The West Dance team qualified for state in D1 Jazz and D2 Palms. Due to COVID, the team submitted their video and will know the results after April 24th. The co-op trap shooting team has started the season 3-0 at both the varsity and JV levels. Both the boys and girls lacrosse teams have started practice and will be competing in their first game next week. And the Dolphins synchronized swimming team has announced a theme. This year's theme is A Dolphin's Day Off, a play on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Tickets are on sale now in our bookkeeper's office, and shows will be held on April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. Other spring sports are using contact days with coaches to touch up on skills and condition before their seasons start in the coming weeks. And lastly, basketball player Aaron Tennies was just named Washington County Player of the Year. In other news, scholarships for seniors this year were recently mailed home. Abigail would like to congratulate all the recipients this year and would also like to extend a thank you to Columns and all of their partners and donors. Their generosity will make a huge difference in the lives of many seniors, including Abigail. That's all she had for today. She hopes everyone has a great evening and drive safe.
All right, great. Thank you, Abigail and Superintendent Wimmer for that update. And I think the board would certainly echo the thanks to Columns and the other scholarship donors for the wonderful scholarship program. It really is a gem in our community and makes a big difference in our children's lives. So thank you for that as well. Next on our agenda is public participation. I've not received any comment cards. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board for public participation? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our consent agenda. And our consent agenda consists of a number of sets of minutes from a March 12 special board meeting, March 22 regular board meeting, March 22 executive session, and March 26 special board meeting. We also have a report of disbursements posted through April 12th, 2021. There were no contracts to ratify, one resignation, and no retirements. I would move to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second by
Thank
Paul.
you. Thank you, Paul. Motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. We're on to Superintendent Wimmer's report.
Thank you. A couple items tonight. First, congratulations to the staff of the West Bend School District who collectively earned a Pace Setter designation from United Way of Washington County for our high level of donation through the employee campaign. Our thanks goes to United Way for their support of our students and community. So congratulations to everyone. A hot topic lately has been, again, the COVID-19 mitigation measures. We see some numbers increasing locally, and we also have updates from our partners in public health. I sent a note. Again, I provide an every Friday update to all of our families. It's posted right on our website for the public as well. We do a daily dashboard, but then an every Friday update. You'll note that we had some interesting conversation with regional superintendents as well as our partners in public health last Thursday, and we'll continue that this Thursday. We talked about some general case numbers, seeing the highest that we've seen in 2 months in the area. And again, we're able to localize and look while we see a little bit of an increase, nothing of concern just yet for us. They noted that they're starting to see variants in Wisconsin, and the Department of Health and Human Services has created a variant tracker that you can go online and monitor. So again, we continue to hold with our current mitigation measures. So face coverings, the physical distancing everywhere we can get it, the contact tracing and quarantines. What we're working on specifically is what do short and long-term kind of stepping back mitigation measures look like? We don't have that answer, but in the feedback that I've been getting from our public, it's like, hey, it would just be nice to know. We're in this kind of weird unknowing part where it's like, well, what's going to change for us and how do we project that? So that's what we've been working with our public health partners to know. We have, I think I counted, it's right around like 32 days of school left. So, what measures can we continue to do? What we do right now is we're holding with our current mitigation measures. I'll know a little bit more this Thursday after we meet again. But we continue to kind of push open opportunities for students. You heard the kids talk about different music, performance, field trips, having guests in, things like prom, grad walks, expanding graduation attendance. We're continuing to push and lead the way in those areas. One of the other pieces that we talk about are vaccinations. People wonder, like, well, educational staff were a priority, isn't that all done? We're actually still working our way through second rounds for those who are eligible for the vaccine, so we haven't completed that just yet. Across Washington and Ozaki, there was something like 7,000 doses needed just for educational staff. So they're doing a great job and moving through those as can be expected. I think it was Kurt last time wondered about some numbers around general vaccine data. They noted in their last week report that about 20.5% of Washington County has completed their vaccine series, and that 65.8% of Washington County residents who are age 65 and older have completed their series as well. So they had some statistics. One of the things that's coming up also in public is now different vaccines. Kids 16 and older are eligible. Those who are 18 and older are eligible for Moderna. The 16 to 17-year-olds can get the Pfizer. You can go online to our public health partners. They can help you get connected with that. And they're starting to enter into discussions around eligibility ages lowering and what that might look like. We're helping to plan, how many numbers we have for student enrolled. But I just want to remind everyone that Wisconsin's a personal conviction state, meaning that we don't require our students to have vaccines for whatever personal health, religious reasons. You can make that choice for yourself. We wouldn't be restricting anything. The only thing we're looking for guidance from our public health is if a student were to be vaccinated, does that shift quarantine should they be exposed to a positive case? So those are some of the big topics we're talking about regionally as superintendents with our partners in public health. That's a lot and a lot to talk about, and I'm sure it's a hot topic in the community. Are there any questions from board members?
Any questions? All right. Please go ahead.
Thank you for considering what the short and long-term plans will look like changing mitigation. I'm especially interested in when we can pull back a bit on contact tracing, since we haven't had anyone test positive who has been contact traced, and we've gotten enough data under our belt. So I'd like that to be
That was one
priority.
thing we advocated for and brought forward our local data. If you look, the last time I did the calculations, we're under 2%. Always, I look at kind of different populations, different ages, and we're trending to the 1.6 or 1.8. That's very low for those. So that's one of the very things we're advocating for, is that if we're holding firm for the next, like I said, we have about 33 days left with our other mitigation members strategies. Can we back off that? They were very receptive to hearing our rationale, looking at our local data, and that's kind of what we're going to work our way through on Thursday.
I just had one comment. I want to commend you and all the staff for being forward on prom, having prom. This is the time of the year. I hear from many of my people and parents I know in other districts, Sturgeon Bay being one of them, that do not have a prom. And people are very disappointed. So thank you for our school district and all the ones involved with making that a priority.
I mean, that's really, I can't say it enough. I know I say it like a broken record every Friday in our update, but that's the diligence of everyone, our students, our families, our staff, and having the data to support that we're making sound decisions. We've been, like I said, it feels slow sometimes, but we've been really diligent in what we're doing so that we're constantly positioning to open up more opportunities, not take stuff away or not be able to look at something and offer it to students. So I'm confident in our students and what they've showed us this far, and that they'll be able to embrace that opportunity and have a good time. So anything else on COVID? I have just a couple more items. Okay, great. As you know, our spring election was held last week. The Board of Canvassers met this afternoon at 3 p.m. to canvass the results of the April 6th election. That's a public meeting which includes verification from every voting entity, all the towns, the villages, cities, etc. So formal certification follows that event. I would just like to thank all the candidates for their interest in serving as school board members, and remind our community that you don't need to be a member of the board to be involved in the schools in the district. And if you're interested, feel free and reach out at any time. I'm always happy to connect or get you connected with things that are of interest to you, or happy to hear feedback about our district. And then just a note, our summer program, we've made a switch for our summer program, the current 4K through grade 3. We're going to host now at Green Tree Elementary, just looking at some of the summer projects, having air conditioning in the building, those kinds of things. So we'll move that there, and the grades 4 through 7 will be at Silverbrook. The high school will remain at the high school. Detailed information is available on our website. One of the things that we have, there might be some opportunities for remediation that are not sitting in that summer school program booklet. A lot of times our 8th graders are coming out of 8th grade and then they're moving to that credit system of high school, so they're taking things. But I just want families and the board to know, while that might not be part of the summer school program, know that there are some dedicated remediation that will be invitation only to our students that might need a little jump start before they enter the high school to help them out. Any questions?
Great, thank you very much for the report. All right, under the action items section of our agenda, we have a number of policy readings recommended for revision, and Superintendent Wimmer will walk us through those. The first is a second reading of a policy recommended for revision.
Note that this is a second reading of a policy. This one was just to align the numbering system. We do have a full board here this evening. If that were to be a unanimous vote, we can proceed with that. Again, that's just cleaning up a numbering issue, no change in the content.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Joel, second by Nancy. Any final discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item is a third reading of policies recommended for removal, and Superintendent Wimmer will handle that as well.
You'll recall that the slate of policies before you, this is our third time revisiting them. They are recommended for removal. It's either outdated information, doesn't follow practice, or it's contained in other policies.
I'll move to delete policy 361.2, reproducing copyrighted material. Remove 441.2, non-voting advisory student board member. 447.2, appropriate use of seclusion and restraint. And 6181.2, which is a rule of AV preview and purchase process.
I'll second the motion. Motion and second to delete these four policies. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then lastly, a third reading of policies recommended for revision.
So those were ones that we, again, visited in committee and here for a third time, where we've had some tweaks. It goes from cleaning up small pieces of language or larger chunks of revision to more accurately reflect practice or bring into compliance with some component.
I would like to make a motion here, but before I do, I'd like to ask my fellow members if there's any one of these policies that you would like to take up separately. Otherwise, my motion will include several at once.
That's fine with me.
Okay? I move to approve. Do I need to read all of these?
You can say, I mean, they're publicly here. We can say
They're
that you move to
publicly-
approve as recommended.
They're publicly posted, so I will not read every single one of them, but I will move to approve the board policies posted here for approval tonight.
Second. Paul?
Thank you, Paul.
Sorry, Joel, did you mean recommended for revision, not for approval?
Correct. Let me restate my motion. I will recommend approval. I will move to approve the revisions to the policies listed in front of us here tonight.
Paul, would you agree to second that motion?
Yes.
Motion and second to approve the revisions of the policies as outlined. Any final discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. We're on to literacy standards, and Mrs. Laura Jackson will walk us through that item. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Wimmer. I am here just to review the literacy standards that were shared last time and offer them up for approval and then implementation in the West Bend School District. Do you have any questions since our presentation last time?
Any questions for Laura? Hearing none, I would move to approve the 2020 Wisconsin Standards for English Language Arts for implementation in the West Bend School District.
I'll second, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron, for the second. Motion and second to approve the Wisconsin Standards for English Language Arts.
Laura, how often would a standard like this be revisited? Is this something we approve every year from the state, or is it every 3-5 years?
So the state revises them about every 10, 12 years.
Okay.
We, every year in July, at the first board meeting, you approve the annual notice of standards to go to parents. And if you recall, this past July, both sets of literacy standards were listed because we were going to be investigating these throughout the year. And so you approve the notice to parents every year, and then when the state adopts new ones, we review them before bringing up. So about every 10 to 12 years in a content area. So it probably seems like every year you're reviewing some because all of the content areas don't happen at one time.
Great, thank you.
Joe, thank you for the question. Any other questions for Laura? All right, if not, I will call the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I am looking at my printed agenda here, and the next item I have on the printed agenda is other post-employment benefits plan clarifications. Just want to be sure that agrees. My online agenda looks like it's got the future board meeting calendar and items for follow-up and communication, but I believe the next item would be a discussion of other post-employment benefits plan clarifications. Correct? Thank you. All right. And Mr. Lenny Hansen will walk us through that. Good evening, Mr. Hansen.
Good evening. As you know, in 2014, the board approved some modifications to the district's retirement benefit for employees. At that time, we transitioned from a medical continuation option where retirees can stay on our medical insurance until they become Medicare eligible at the age of 65. The board decided at that time, 7 years ago, to phase that out over a period of time in favor of replacing it with a 403B TSA cash payment into a retirement account upon retirement. Basically, the philosophy was to place this amount of money in an account that belongs to the retiree, and then they use that to purchase insurance on the marketplace for themselves that kind of best fits their personal needs, rather than just staying on the district's plan. There were a number of reasons for that. We don't need to go into that ad nauseum, but some of the big ones were that this is a defined benefit that we're moving to. So the district and the employee know exactly how much that money is upon, what that amount is upon retirement. Whereas when you stay on health insurance, obviously it's unknown. The cost of health insurance can go up from year after year. From the district's perspective, as a self-funded district, we don't know what that, if something terrible were to happen health-wise to that employee after they retire, we are responsible for the cost of that, which can be obviously very significant with certain illnesses. So this really defined that benefit very clearly for us. What we moved to was this defined benefit. Next year will be the first year that we have our first group of retirees that are eligible for this new benefit. At the time the old benefit was approved, the board decided to basically grandfather anyone that was 50 years or older at that time in 2014. Well, time is coming around. We're going to get our first round of individuals retiring under the new benefit. Knowing that, the Human Resources Department has been analyzing the details of how to administer this benefit. Year after year, we've been setting aside money in our Fund 73 OPEB account. So financially, we've been preparing ever since this was adopted. However, the actual administration, how you actually make these payments, all those sorts of pieces are what we've been digging into. And what we did is we looked at the document that was approved by the board at the time in 2014. And, there's a variety of pieces that we thought could be enhanced with some additional clarification. In addition, we have to abide by IRS rules and regulations, and some of those get updated over the past 7 years and whatnot. So what I provided for you is the document that was approved in 2014 with additions that were recommended by Human Resources, and then we had them reviewed by the attorney for the district, as well as got some consultation free of charge from WEA Member Benefits, who is our third-party administrator for our 403Bs. So all I'm presenting to you tonight is the document that we're proposing for approval at the next meeting 2 weeks from now. So really just answering questions, get it out there, see what kind of thoughts you have, so that hopefully we can bring it for approval in a couple of weeks. The primary changes, I guess, to sum it up, just a few wording pieces as we talk with the attorney, the use of certain terms like designation versus contribution, earnings, those sorts of things, best practices there. We wanted to really make it really clear what the eligibility criteria were for being eligible for the benefit. We also wanted to tighten up some language around how leaves of absence are handled, that someone doesn't reset their retirement benefit at that point, but maybe it pauses when they go on a leave of absence. And then again, just some of those IRS rules, some of the details around that we wanted to clarify. So everybody would be on the same page, employees would fully understand as well as us, and that helps us execute the plan in a very consistent manner.
Can you highlight what the eligibility is to receive this benefit?
So to be eligible for this benefit, basically you have to be eligible for our health insurance plan. So it's a full-time employee as defined by someone who is eligible for our health insurance plan. That's the long and short of it.
Okay, but then you have to have so many years of experience before you...
Correct. So that's to put you in the pool of eligibility. To actually collect the benefit, yes. At the end, you have to reach both 57 years of age and have 17 years of continuous service to the district in an eligible position.
So someone who starts teaching at 30 and wants to retire at 47,
they cannot.
You cannot. You got to stay till 57.
Correct.
You mentioned back in 2014 we started grandfathering the folks who were
50 years or
50,
older at that time.
And 7 years later, if you were, say, 50, do we have a lot of folks who are now 57 who would still be grandfathered into the old plan?
We do have a number of people who have worked, that either can retire this year or have decided to work longer.
Sure.
57 years of age. There is a number of them, yes.
Okay. And I assume we can afford to pay that old
Yep.
portion of the
Mr.
benefit.
Sarno's finance team does an excellent job making sure that we allocate an appropriate amount of money into our Fund 73 on an annual basis, and that money can only be used to pay for retirement benefits.
All right. Thank you.
I just want to clarify the defining, adding, modifying the language a little bit. You're not changing the eligibility at all, you're just making it more clear.
That's correct. The changes proposed do not add or reduce anybody who's eligible for the benefit. They do not increase or decrease the obligation that the district had already been planning on. It results in no change to the financial obligation of the district, nor does it result in any change to what an employee would receive previously.
So really, these are kind of proactive changes to help avoid misunderstandings. But I think it's very wise that we underwent that analysis. Thank you for that. Other questions for Mr. Hanson?
I just have one. Back in 2014, what, on a high level, you don't have to go through the detail of the calculation, but I'm assuming for the eligible people that you're putting away money in the trust every year, on a high level, is it their total salary times a percentage?
Yep, there's a percentage, there's a table in the document. So basically it's determined by what year you are. So at first, your first few years, there's nothing set aside for you, okay? Then they move into a tier where it's 2% of your earnings each year, and then after you've worked a number of more years, then it goes 3%, then and then it maxes out at 4% of earnings after that each year.
And nothing's being changed from that, all those original formulas? Okay.
Good questions. Any other questions? All right, as this is a discussion item, we will see this back in a future agenda. That'll give us time to consider it. Thank you for that. We'll move on then to the next item, which is certified staff salary ceiling, expertise pay amounts, and novice salary scale for the 2021-2022 school year. And Mr. Hanson will present this topic as well.
So about a year ago, you approved the new compensation model for certified staff, which has been rolling out very smoothly. Part of that compensation model calls for an annual review of a number of elements, and some of those elements are what are being brought before you today. Some of them we talked about earlier back in the winter around micro-credential courses that you approved that we could offer and then compensate for that additional expertise as staff acquire it. These are some additional pieces. So first, I'll talk about the novice salary scale. Back when we, this past fall, I believe, we brought before you an updated novice salary schedule. At that time, it had not been updated since 2014 when the previous compensation framework had gone into effect. So you may recall there were some larger increases because that scale, while very competitive in 2014, since it had not been updated each year, had eroded some of its competitiveness. So we made some increases there that were fairly, to account for that decrease versus the market. We don't want to end up in that situation again. We'd much rather each year add small amounts to our novice salary scale to avoid having to all at once make a huge increase. We want to stay competitive year after year versus these big catch-up allotments. So the scale that you see presented before you today has a $300 increase in each of the 5 cells. So what you'll see here is there's an increase. If I go from year 1 to year 2, I have an increase in salary, and now what we've done is basically just add $300 to each of those levels to basically just maintain our competitive edge there. So before I go any further, just questions about the novice scale?
I'll ask a question, Lenny. If I was a year 1 teacher last year making $43,000, next year, will I fall under this new scale, and what used to be 44.3 is now 44.6?
Correct. So if you are a brand new teacher in our district this year, you're making $43,000. If this is approved next year, you would make $44,600. All right. The next piece, the salary ceiling, I'll cover briefly. The new compensation model had a salary ceiling component. That component did not freeze salaries, but basically slowed the acceleration of salary above that number. Not an uncommon feature in compensation, both private and public sector. That salary ceiling was set at $75,000 in our initial round. The way that's played out, for example, this year, that those above the ceiling received a pay increase roughly 58% the size of what the increase was for those below the ceiling. Okay, that's how it has played out. Basically, you receive a portion of the across-the-board salary that the board approves if you're above that ceiling. We are not at this time recommending a change to the salary ceiling, so I don't have there's no change in the document that you see before you. The final piece I have there revolves around our expertise pay. So we compensate for a variety of different expertise areas that certified staff can add to their qualifications. We discussed some of this in the winter. At that time, the board did approve an increase for the reading, ELL, and special education license. So if I was, for example, a classroom teacher who also has one of those licenses, they make me especially capable of reaching those learners, which are in some of our targeted achievement areas that we want to further work to close gaps. So at that time, you approved an increase of those from $1,100 to $2,100. So that's already done. What I've done here is kind of capture all of the pieces together. So master's degree, we're recommending to keep that amount static where it has been. Same with the National Board Certification Expertise Pay Stipend of $2,500. That one actually is not only, it's great that we offer that, that's actually a match to what the state offers. If I'm a board certified teacher, I every year can receive $2,500 from the state of Wisconsin, and then we actually match it as well. We feel that's a very valuable and telling piece of evidence of the teacher's expertise and makes a real impact on student achievement. That one we're proposing to keep where it is. In the middle of that document is where we've made a couple other proposals. So basically, the reading, ELL, and cross-categorical special ed is where you approved it earlier in the winter. The administrator piece is also where you approved it in the winter, and then that alternative education piece you approved in the winter as well. The piece that is being proposed to be added says regular education and classroom teacher license. So what that's referring to is, if you look in the bullet points, that would be available to individuals who are our special education teachers or our ELL teachers who have multiple licenses and actually could also be classroom teachers. It's basically the reverse of what we've been accomplishing by giving classroom teachers additional compensation if they are special education licensed. So I'm proposing this for a number of reasons. The first is that if we don't have something like this, we're actually creating an incentive for our great special ed teachers to leave special education and go teach in regular ed. Because we do not pay the stipend if it's a requirement of your job. So if I'm a special education teacher, I don't get that special ed stipend because it's required for me to work in that position, okay? But they know if they were to leave that special ed position and request a transfer to one of our open classroom teacher spots, they could actually make the $2,100 on top of their normal salary. But we don't want to create incentives in our system for great special education and ELL teachers to leave that spot. So what this does is if that teacher in special education or ELL is dually licensed, and so that they, in the current setup would actually benefit from transferring out of their position, they would actually receive that license for basically being dually licensed and being licensed to teach in a regular ed setting. The other reason that that's really valuable is that means they've acquired that additional expertise and education that around the general education curriculum, which should impact their effectiveness working with students. So not only are they an expert in special education instruction, for example, but by being an expert in also regular education for the overall curriculum should help them both to team with the teachers that they're working with the classroom teachers they work with students, and then to be even more, excel even more at adapting the work that they're having their students do for the special education setting. So we feel that there's a benefit in multiple ways there, and that's why it's being proposed. We're not talking about a very large number of teachers that are dually licensed. We have 15 special education teachers that would qualify for this, that are dually licensed, and we have 2 ELL teachers that are dually licensed. I have been approached by some special education teachers about this very scenario since we rolled out the new model. This issue kind of always existed, but now we have incentivized these additional licenses even more. That I think it's really coming to the forefront. And the teachers are right, and I agree with them. Like, we don't want to create an incentive for, I mean, I can think of one who came to me that I've worked with personally, outstanding special education teacher. She's saying, well, you know, I'm coming up on retirement. I want to make sure I get my earnings as high as I can. I don't want to create an incentive for that outstanding special education teacher to go to regular ed simply because of this anomaly. So that's the crux of the reason for that proposal. So questions from the group?
So Lenny, if I played a hypothetical, if we're looking at hiring 2 positions straight out of college, one is a regular classroom position and one is a special ed position, would both of them be compensated based on the previous piece that you just presented? Would they both be compensated at the base 43.3?
So a new teacher get a classroom or special ed starts at the 43.3. That is the starting salary.
Okay, so and what I'm drilling into here is the hole that we effectively have, because that classroom teacher could go get this license and get a $2,100 bump, whereas I'm coming in with that proficiency and I don't get anything.
So I'm sorry, you're saying if someone is hired as a classroom teacher, but they have a special education?
No, I'm 2 scenarios of 2 positions, one classroom, one special ed position. College graduate is coming to the district, and they're both going to be paid year 1 salary, but that special ed position has the licensure, but they're getting 43.3.
So the key to remember is, are they dually licensed? Are they licensed they can do either job? You're only receiving this additional $2,100 if you can do
If you can do both, okay.
So
Okay.
that ability to do both is what makes you uniquely extra valuable.
Okay, and today we have the incentive on the classroom going this way, but not the other way.
Correct.
Got it, okay, thank you.
Other questions? This too is a discussion item, and we'll come back to a future agenda, correct?
Yep, the plan is to bring it 2 weeks from now at the same time I bring the retirement benefit.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. All right, next we're on to committee reports, and Aaron Dove is going to give us a report on the Curriculum Committee meeting, which was held on April 6, 2021. Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. We had 3 items on our agenda that day. All 3 were discussion items. The first involved our Gifted and Talented program. And I'm just going to read through some of the things that came up during our discussion. The West Bend School District revised the policy for Gifted and Talented 342.3 back in the 18-19 school year, and the Gifted and Talented handbook was completed at that time. Heather Gelnick, the assistant principal of Silverbrook, now oversees that program, and our students are supported by 2 staff members, Kelly Egan at the K through 6 level and Susan Sarek at the 7 through 12 level. Kelly works directly with teachers to ensure that they have the resources needed for advanced differentiated instruction. So the goal is to give students the rigor they need, but not necessarily pull them out of the class that's determined on the need for their support. The Gifted and Talented team uses the STAR assessment results to get more information on students on the level of rigor that is needed for them, and it is just one of the data points used to consider if supports are needed. The DEP, which is the differentiated education plan, is used with Tier 3 students. That's being added to the system EduClimber so that all staff has access to it, and can see the learning goals of each student. Susan Sarek, the teacher at the 7 through 12 level, she works with students on course selection and AP placement as well. The second item on our agenda was to go over the curricular processes and what's done when a new primary resources is needed for a course. There are a number of steps that are followed for that. First is that resources are identified for review. Those materials are then reviewed for a number of points. One is the alignment to district vision for educational appropriateness for students, alignment to the grade level standards and student outcomes, alignment to district learning, instructional, and assessment practices, compatibility to our district systems, the budgetary impact, and professional development. Next, then, the public is able to review for some resources. Some classes are up for certification, and those have a very specific text requirement, so those may not go for public review. From there's a curriculum department review, and then finally it then comes to us as a recommendation. During the same review, they also look at unit development process. And when planning instruction for a new course or a revised course, what processes are followed for unit development? First, the review of the district guiding practices around instruction. There's policy 343.6 that helps guide that. And the master's schema for instruction. There's identification of standard of focus, essential questions, identification of key understandings, identification of assessments, and specific learning activities, and then the resources. And then finally, the last item in our discussion was summer school resources. They really dove into what resources are being used for summer school classes. And this year, it's going to be a much more consistent resources across classes in better alignment to what is happening during the school year. Any questions?
Any questions for Erin? Erin, thanks for the recap, and thanks to the members of the curriculum committee. Appreciate the work that you folks do. All right. Next, we'll talk about future agenda items. Let me just pull up our board meeting calendar here. Let's see, there it is. So our next curriculum committee meeting will be held on May 4th. And then we have regular board meetings scheduled for April 26, May 10, and May 24. Are there any items for follow-up and communication from the board?
The board would like to wish Aaron Dove a happy birthday today.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Erin.
Thank you.
All right. Then we will conclude our agenda with the final agenda item, which is adjourn, and I would therefore move to adjourn. And is there a second? Second, Nancy. Thank you, Nancy, for the second. Motion and second to adjourn. Final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion to adjourn carries. Thank you, everyone, for attending and for watching. Have a good night.